doing more social media stuff that we haven't seen candidates do in the past. And I think it's very helpful because most people have found like a sort of distrust in mainstream news. And I think especially for what I've done in my career, with a lot of Black people don't trust the mainstream news as well.
I don't think most people trust the mainstream news in general at this point.
I think we should be better than that. I think that we can't get mad at people, you know, the way they perceive some of the things that people on our side say. And then when it comes to the opposing side saying things we don't like, then now we're, you know, trying to cancel them at the same time.
Before this goes too deep, this young woman is a rising conservative. She was once on the Democratic side, but made a switch to being conservative side. She supports Trump. She supports conservative beliefs. And she's basically talking to someone who's on the Democratic side. I don't know if he's super liberal or nothing, but I know that he leans leftist. And they're having a conversation about the Black conservative vote. What made her vote conservative? What makes her support the conservative side? Let's not waste any more time.
I think we should be better than that.
So what do you think about the FCC pressuring ABC to basically cancel Jimmy Kimmel's show? This happened last night. The FCC on TV said something like, you know, we can do this the easy way or the hard way, after Jimmy Kimmel made some admittedly dumb comments about the Charlie Kirk shooter. And lo and behold, Jimmy Kimmel is suspended a few hours later. It's like when you know, if Biden's FCC pick said, you know, that guy Gutfeld, he's saying some, you know, nasty stuff. We could do this the easy way or the hard way. And then Fox suspended Gutfeld's show. It's like, I think the right would be absolutely correct to be up in arms about that. And so there's something very, there's something sinister about it.
I can see why some people feel that way. But to me, I think ABC's, if we're talking about ABC specifically, I think they're full of shit. I don't support the network, can't stand them, don't want to deal with them. But at the same time, I do hear the counter argument of, you know, the way the political discourse is going is not going in the best direction. But I also believe that it's journalism as a whole is become like this. And I think that, you know, some of the things, the narrative they try to spin around the president and around people on our side is not always, it's 9 times out of 10, like they try to make it a negative narrative. And that's like different outlets across the board. And I think that, you know, when you get into the, you know, the YouTube world of people and like the social media world, I think that's when people have more of an opportunity to say what they actually want to say. But at the same time, you know, they've shadow banned people on our side on different platforms. So I'm not really sure what the right answer is to that, but I could see the counter argument of, you know, the way things are going in the media may not be in the best, you know, light.
So basically what she's saying is that ABC lies a lot, and although she doesn't agree with the lack of freedom of speech, she doesn't care that he got banned. She could not care less. He was spreading lies, in her opinion, or she implied he was spreading lies, and they've been targeting the right for a long time. So it's about time people targeted the left. She didn't say it like that, but that's what I got from her message. And I might be wrong. That's just what I got from it, bro. That's what I got. Because she opened it up by saying she doesn't care. She doesn't give a S, and that people have been going after people on the right for a very long time. Let me know what you guys think about that. And I do agree on the premise that people have been targeting the right for a very long time. I think a lot of voices were not being allowed to say anything who were on the right. Now I will say people on the left are probably being targeted more, but people on the right were being targeted for quite a minute. That's just
I mean, I agree with you about the shadow banning stuff. The jawboning thing, I used a hypothetical, but actually in real life, Joe Biden or members of his administration did pressure Twitter to shadow ban individuals that they said were spreading misinformation on Twitter. And I think most reasonable people look back on that as a really bad thing to have done. First of all, because the government shouldn't be deciding what's misinformation and what's true. Like, it is true. The networks, they're all biased towards liberals. Like almost every TV channel in America, almost every news show that actually airs on television is biased towards liberals and biased toward the left. So what should the response to that be from Republicans and conservatives? My view is if if you start saying it's okay for the administration to intimidate people into agreeing with the administration, well, the left is going to do that the moment, whatever, AOC runs for president. She's going to say, well, you guys did all the same thing. We have to do it back to you. So the strategy of like creating your own institutions that reflect your values is way healthier than trying to use the power and force of the federal government to actually like intimidate people.
I think that's why a lot of people on our side are more moving towards like the independent space of not, focusing too much on the major networks, especially as you've seen like on the campaign trail. Like, the president did a bunch of podcasts. He went into doing more social media stuff that we haven't seen candidates do in the past. And I think it's very helpful because most people have found like a sort of distrust in mainstream news. And I think especially for what I've done in my career, with a lot of Black people don't trust the mainstream news as well. So I think a lot of people look.
I don't think most people trust the mainstream news in general at this point. At least that's just what I say. I don't think most people trust it. I don't know if I trust it. I think when you're so financially intertwined in a narrative, to me that can lead to you being untrustworthy. Like, for example, if your livelihood depends on you pushing a narrative, whether it's right or wrong, I just don't trust it. That's just my opinion. I'm not gonna lie. And I've seen mainstream media just outright lie to people for the sake of lying to them. And I would sit and watch them just lie. And I'm like, this is just false. This is just false. And I think we all see it, which is why people like YouTubers are the ones who, I guess, are the new media now. We're the new media, not
towards
mainstream.
YouTube and look towards social media. Can understand why they have a distrust in mainstream news as well.
Yeah. So over the past few days, there's been a one of the things floating around about Charlie Kirk has been his. It's actually a fake quote, but it's a quote that's been circulating all over social media that black women don't have the brain processing power to achieve all that much absent affirmative action. So it turns out he didn't actually say this. What he said specifically was that Kamala Harris, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sheila Jackson Lee, and Michelle Obama had all admitted to being affirmative action admits. And he was mocking them, basically saying, well, yeah, those 4 women are pretty dumb, in his opinion. And so it makes sense to me that they needed affirmative action to get into those colleges.
Okay, here's what I say. Obviously, I do not believe those 4 women are dumb. I don't believe they're all dumb. I'm not even going to pretend like I do. I don't push that narrative at all. But when it comes to affirmative action, it raises an interesting point. It really does. The right's perspective of affirmative action is that it gives an unfair advantage to people who don't deserve it. It gives unfair advantages. It gives unfair privileges for people to get into spaces because you're basically setting quotas such as racial quotas or maybe even gender quotas on people to get into institutions or get into positions. The left's perspective is, no, that's not the case. We all can benefit from this. We all deserve these opportunities. The reason why I'm not really a super advocate or why I really believe the left on this issue is because affirmative action is not something that's primarily used for poor white people. And the reason I bring poor white people specifically up is because the majority of poor people in America are white. The majority of disenfranchised people when it comes to financial stability are literally objectively white. I'm speaking in pure raw numbers. Not to push a narrative, but that's just pure raw numbers. And if that's the case, I think affirmative action, something that's supposed to build equity in a system, should help them out as well. If your goal is to help disenfranchised communities, I think the economy or being economically destabilized is one of the biggest disadvantages you can have objectively, because if you don't have money, you will be homeless. You will not be able to get food. You will not be able to get education. So disenfranchised communities across the board, if you're an advocate for affirmative action and things like that, should be prioritized. But when you see groups of people who aren't being prioritized, or you're prioritizing people specifically based on race or something like that, it's just strange to me. It's just strange to me. But let me know what you guys think.
Paraphrasing what he said, but he didn't say it about all black women. He said it about 4 black women in particular. It certainly wasn't a nice thing to say. And it certainly isn't like obvious to me that Michelle Obama, for instance, would have been an affirmative action admit as opposed to a meritocratic one. But I think it's also legitimate if you think certain individuals in public are stupid and you want to say that, and they admit to having gotten in under these special programs, to me, it's not necessarily racist to point that out. If that's your opinion, it's certainly unkind. And you might be wrong. Like, actually, they might be more impressive minds than you're giving them credit for. But it's not racist per se to point that out. That was my reaction to it. I think people are twisting his words. I'm curious if you've seen this going around and what you think about it.
Of course, I've seen this going around. And I agree with what you're saying. I think that's the best way I've heard somebody else put it is, admitting to being a part of affirmative action alludes to the fact that maybe you might not have been as qualified as you thought you were. I'm not going to speak on Michelle, Kendaji, Kamala. That's a different conversation. But I'm not going to say that because I don't know. I'm not going to say that I know that they were hired under affirmative action. That's the only way they would have, made it to the level that they are. But I do believe that what he said isn't racist because if someone is admitting to this, then it alludes to, this other perception that maybe you weren't as qualified as you thought you were.
Okay, final question. If there's one thing you wish people would understand about the situation with the National Guard and crime and law and order and race and police, what would that be?
I don't know if it's something I would say I need them to understand, but I think it's about accountability. And I think we focus so much as a society of pointing the finger at other people that we don't want to be accountable for our own situations, our own problems. And some of these things, are a direct result of yourself, So I think that, yes, I support the president sending the National Guard into, minority communities is what the narrative they're spinning is. And I do think that it's useful and it's helpful to provide safer neighborhoods because that's what he promised and ran on and said he was going to do. But I also think that as Black people in these communities, we need to focus on being accountable for our own actions as well.
Okay, Janai, thanks so much for coming on my show.
Thank you.
I think that was a good discussion. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with Janaya or do you think she's not really as based as she should be? Anyways, my name is LFR Jojo. Thank you guys for watching. Please make sure you like and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next one.